the mains PYQ discussion by Neva is the theme of the discussion is Bhakti and Sufi tradition. Now, from this same theme, you have more than one questions. We are discussing one question here. We are discussing it separately because every question has a different dimension. Even though the theme is same, the dimension is different. See, for example, in this question, the question is about evaluating the nature of Bhakti literature. And second, it's about the contribution it has to Indian culture. So Bhakti literature, to be specific, and its contribution to Indian culture is the key. All right. So we'll start by talking about what Bhakti tradition is in the first place. So remember, literature is different from tradition. Tradition is a broader understanding. Literature is one element of it. So we'll start talking about the tradition first. So Bhakti tradition is all about Indians' devotion to a personal God. That's it. We'll give the key definition in the introduction. We'll give the origin of it, which is from South India through the form of Nayanas and Alvars. And next up, we'll give the time period of it, which is medieval India. Better not to give particular year because it's a fluid concept. So let's give it as medieval India. So we can say that Bhakti tradition is something that originated from South India during the medieval period, and its nature is intense devotion to a personal god. That will be our introduction. Coming to the body part, it's a 10 marker. We have 8 points in 2 parts. First, we'll talk about the nature of Bhakti literature. Second, we'll talk about the contribution it has to Indian culture. Now, first, individual devotion and personal God. That's the first nature. Just like the tradition, the literature also has the same nature. Everything is in this direction. So we cannot move ahead without giving this point because it is a core point. Second, this literature places philosophy on top of rituals. For example, take the case of the Bijak literature written by Kabir. Kabir is the Nirguna saint. Nirguna means these saints don't believe in form. For example, they don't have bhakti to Krishna or Rama or any form. They have belief in a god which is formless. So it is a monotheistic tradition. So the philosophy matters here more than rituals or a form. So that's the second nature. Third, they wrote in vernacular and they wrote in very simple language. So that's another nature. And finally, they contributed to diverse literary traditions because they wrote not just in the form of poems, they wrote in the form of verses, hymns, and narratives. So it is a contribution to literature itself. That is the nature. Second is the contribution. This is where we'll bring proper valuation. First, it diluted the rigid caste-based hierarchy. Now here, we'll give some examples. We can give the example of the Veerashaiva tradition. Or just give the name of Basavanna. Most are the same. So they worked against caste hierarchy. There are other examples, I'll suggest one more. The Nathpandi saints. They also worked against caste hierarchy. And this was through the literature. First thing. Second, this literature promoted harmony and unity in the society. I've already told you about Kabir. So when you have a formless god, that means every god is same. So it promoted harmony. Or you take the case of Guru Nanak. You will see Guru Granth Sahib, the sacred text of Sikhs. It has elements from different states. For example, Kabir's verses are there. So this is the idea of harmony and unity. Or you have the Sikh tradition of joint dining. Every caste will sit together and eat. That is also promoting harmony and unity. So that is part of the tradition, but we'll talk about the literature here. Next up, we have talked about vernacular and simple language. It led to the development of these languages, and language is very much part of the society and culture. For example, take the case of Tamil. The Bhakti literature written by Alvars. Alvaras Vishnu saints, Vishnu Bhakts. One prominent literature is the Nalayira Divya Prabandham. So Nalayira Divya Prabandham has contributed to the Tamil literature as well. Then you take the case of regional art forms. For example, in Kerala, there is a famous poet called Eഴുത്തച്ഛൻ. So he wrote Ramayana in a different form in Malayalam literature called the Bhakti Kilipad. Kili means a bird. So he wrote the Ramayana as something that is being narrated by a bird. And it is from this you have regional art forms that are developing. For example, Kathakali. It's an art form from Kerala. It takes inspiration or it takes verses or dialogues from this particular literature. So literature gets connected to culture, art forms, language, unity, and it fights against caste hierarchy as well. So that will be the dimension that we'll be covering in this answer. Finally, the conclusion. Now, first of all, we are talking just about Bhakti literature. So in the conclusion, we will invoke Sufi movement. So parallel Sufi movement is also part of this time period. And we'll say that it embodies the spirit of Buddhist values like moderation and non-violence. And we'll conclude the answer. So on the whole, for this 10 marker, this analytical angle plus the factual part will be enough. So that's it. Thank you for listening.